So Iran has executed Mohsen Shekari, the first in the executions for those found guilty of the protests in the country. And they were protesting the execution of a young woman whose name I do not know. I'll be honest with you because I don't know too much about the foreign policy right there. And I'll explain to you why, even though I don't know why I'm speaking on it, because that's actually a very important feature of why. But basically, this was a young woman who, in protest in the country of Iran, decided to take off her hijab, something that is illegal and punishable by death in that country. Here's why that's none of our business. Now, that may upset you to hear, but it's really, truly none of our business. I say all that to say that, one, I'm a Muslim, so take that as you will, but I'm not an Orthodox Muslim. As a matter of fact, the things that I do, the way that I behave myself, if I lived in Iran, I would probably be put to death too. I would definitely not be considered a Muslim, definitely not a good practicing one. So by no means am I trying to claim that. And I don't want you to think that that's the reason that I support this, because I don't actually support this. I don't support the execution of women for any clothes that they may or may not be wearing, unless it involves pedophilia, but that's a whole different other topic. But my point in saying this is that I don't make the rules for Iran, not because I'm a Muslim, not because I care about women, not because I'm a human. I don't make the rules for another country. A nation that has sovereignty is allowed to make its own decisions, whether we agree with them or not. Now, some of those decisions can be so abhorrent that we take measures to stop them. There are things that happen in the world that are such an atrocity, such a crime against humanity, that the globe comes together and decides to put an end to it. Maybe this is one of those times. Maybe this is one of those situations. But for every single American who's sitting there pointing their finger at this country and their practices and saying how gross, how disgusting, this must come to an end, how can this happen in 2022? For every one of you talking about that, there's twofold. One, I want us to reflect and take a look internally at our own country. Drug addiction, pedophilia, trans issues, gender mutilation of children is running rampant. Crime on the rise, homelessness, people out in the streets. United States is in a very bad place right now. I believe that we need to clean up our own facilities before we can make our own bed, before we can look out at the neighbor or anybody and try and cast judgment upon them or talk about what we will and won't tolerate. Because I'm sure in Iran, they're looking at the gross immoral practices that are happening here in America and probably believe that we deserve to be wiped off of the face of the earth as well, in totality. I don't think that innocent civilians should die on either side because of what their governments are deciding to do or allow. Meaning in America, I don't support any of the trans stuff or any of that stuff that's going on, but because my government allows it, people in other countries probably want to kill me just for being American. We should not duplicate that sentiment, because that's the difference of a civilized society like America versus a place where they do execute little girls for taking off their hats. But the second more important topic and reason as to why we need to mind our own business on this is because why do we pick and choose when we care about global issues? Why do we do that? Why do we pick and choose when we care about these kind of things? Because I made a post on social media earlier today about this, and I said, this next few slides are going to be for people who are criticizing what's going on in Iran right now, right? Those people who think that what's happening to that woman is abhorrent probably don't really appreciate pedophilia, right? Pedophilia is the act of engaging in sexually inappropriate or explicit behaviors or conversation with minors, meaning people under the age of 18 years old in most of the United States. And for the places where it's not 18 years old, people have a huge issue with that. Or do they? Not big enough by my measure. Let's take that to a global scale. Us as human beings, we love to criticize people who are Islam or who are Muslim and practice Sharia law. But How much do we care about the global age of consent and pedophilia on a global scale? Let's take a look here. The age of consent in Israel is 16 years old. The age of consent in Japan is 13 years old. The age of consent in Canada, 16 years old. The age of consent in France, 16 years old. The age of consent in Mexico, 17 years old. Last time I checked, none of those people were above the age of 18. And anytime that I brought up that specific, everything I just went over there, without the added context and juxtaposition of what's happening in the Middle East and Iran that we care so much about, every time that I just bring up pedophilia on a global scale, the response that I always receive is, oh, we're just worried about our own country. We're just paying attention to our own country. We're just trying to get our own country correct. We're trying to make sure that this is correct here. Okay. Why is the same sentiment, why is the same energy not shared when we're talking about the assassination of people who are breaking the laws of their country? Or not, I keep saying assassination, but the execution of people who are breaking the laws of their country. Why don't we keep that same energy? Why is one more important than the other? Now, if you want to look me in my face and say, Jordan, now that's silly. Of course, the execution of a young woman is clearly more important and pressing of an issue than global pedophilia. I would look at you in your face and say, I disagree, but I heard what you just said. And at least you would be more honest with yourself than most of the people in this world, pretending like caring about one thing makes you a good person, but Japan makes those cool robot animes. So we're not going to talk about how they like to have sex with 13-year-old girls. That's where I'm going to end this video.